So, hello and welcome again. Today I'm talking about my constructions of Ahri's 9 tails from start to finish. The process is very simple, but can be more expensive because of the fake fur fabric cost. For materials I used 10 wires, yes 10, not 9. They are sturdy, very strong and about 1 meter long. Fabric I used is fake fur and I bought 2 meters. Since my pattern for a tail was about 1 meter long, I had 16 halves in one direction of fur, that makes 8 tails. However, one tail had to be cut in different direction. This is not that big of a problem because you can use steamer or a fan to move them to different direction and make them stay. Also, if you're painting them, that may also help. I used my tails for Star Guardian Ahri and then Spirit Blossom Ahri, so they went through 2 big painting sessions and honestly, I cannot tell which tail was cut in wrong direction. And that's for the main materials. Of course, you need scissors and pan, maybe hot glue or sewing machine, but these steps are up to you. I actually used both, so let's start with the process. As I mentioned before, first I made a pattern. It was 1 meter long and it represented 1/2 of a tail, so I had to cut 18 pieces of them and then connect them to make 9 tails. I did not have got photo of the paper version of pattern, so this is how it looked when I cut it out of fabric. Now, important information. For fur, you should use box cutter or exacto knife or something like this for cutting. Otherwise, you may and are very likely to cut the fur itself. That will create very straight blunt edge that does not look natural. It's similar to cutting your bangs in horizontal motion. If you do not own box cutter, do not fret, you can use scissors, but you have to be very careful to cut only the main fabric and not the fibers themselves. So you cut all the pieces, now what to do? You got 2 options. Connect the pieces now and paint them later, or do it the other way. For Star Guardian Ahri, I started with painting and connecting them after. For Spirit Blossom Ahri, the other way. It doesn't really matter. You see, painting halves first is easier because they are flat and you can do it all in one go and do not have to wait for them to dry. But when you connect them, the pieces might not precisely match, like for the gradients or the painting lines. On the other hand, painting them after connecting is more difficult, but the pattern will match and the fibers won't be as stiff, but that depends also on the painting method you use. Since I created the Star Guardian tails first, I'm gonna explain the process. As you can see, I bought the white fabric, so that means I have to paint them myself. I first made the gradient using watered down acrylic paint. You can also use fabric paint, that would be, I think, better, but it's up to you. First I used light pink and then after it dried, I used slightly darker one and only on the roots part. I did not have got a video of me making the gradient, but the process is the same as painting them blue for Spirit Blossom Ahri, so here is the footage. I used this brush for it. I dipped it in the watered down acrylic paint and then I brushed it onto the tails. For aesthetic reasons, the pink underneath actually did a great job of becoming purple, so my tails were not just plain blue but also had a gradient. The brushing part is the most important. You don't want your fibers to dry together. Separating them afterwards is a huge pain in your bottom. It's time consuming and it needs a lot of strength and your hands will hurt. You can use hair dryer so the paint will dry faster while you brush the fibers. Just brush it. That's the most important step. Brush it, and brush it. And that's how you make the gradient to fade. Now, as you can see, the tails are actually connected here. I show you the painting process, so there is my method of connecting them. Now, disclaimer. You can sew them as they are, of course, but I read a great tip from seamstresses that you should trim the fur in the seam allowance so it won't get in your seams. You can use the scissors or the best is the fur trimmer. Another great trick is to brush the fur to the center. You don't really want to catch the fibers in your seams because it looks messy. And if you want to repair that, you have to manually move the fibers and you won't fully succeed. Great advantage of the fur is that it hides your seams, but if they get caught, they won't do the job. Now, for my process. I put the right sides together and sew along the sides. I wanted to make the ends of my tails sharp, so I did not sew those. At the time I did not really know about cutting the excess fabric, but also it would not help that much because there's really a huge amount of fabric in there. I wanted a really sharp point, so I turned it right side out and connected the tips of tails with hot glue. If you are lazy, you can also hot glue the whole tail together, I do not mind, but I'm not gonna lie. I low-key hate hot glue. It's messy, voluminous, and really can destroy all your costume parts. It's great for insides of armor and different attachment techniques. You just have to be very careful with it. First time I used it on the tails, I glued together the fibers and it really made a mess. It would look horrible, there were no sharp edges. For Spirit Blossom Ahri, I had to cut it out and separate it from the tur because it looked hideous. And it took so much time. On my second try, it looked way better. Please be careful with the hot glue. But I have to be honest with you. I also use it to connect the tails to the base, but we will wait for that step a bit. So, with this, the Star Guardian Ahri tails are finished. We have got the gradient, they are connected. But hey, we're making Spirit Blossom Ahri, no? Well, another important thing. You do not need the pink gradient at all for Spirit Blossom Ahri. You can add purple or dark blue to the roots, or just leave it plain light blue, it's up to you. I used what I already had, and that was Star Guardian Ahri tails that had pink gradient. I remade them, and that means I saved myself a lot of time and a lot of cost. So, with the base color and gradient done, I decided to add the lines. I watched Kinpatsu's tutorial, but I did not have got a brush, so I had to search for a different approach. I tried painting them on, but after the paint dried and I brushed the fibers, the progress was pretty much none. So I bought white acrylic spray, and instead of painting the fibers dark like Kinpatsu did, I created the negative 4 lines. You can also call them borders as well. And I painted the original white lines. Here you can see how. This step should be done on already connected tails because you need those lines to be, connected. Fluid. And last but not least, the construction for the tails to hold. My first base was made from wood with the help of my father. We bent all of the wires upwards, so the base was pretty much falling down like this. So for my second construction, I took inspiration from Wings Maker. It's simple, very easy to make, and the laws of gravitation actually help you this time. As I mentioned before, you need 10 wires. 9 are for the tails, of course, and 1 is for the base. Here is the slideshow. The base looks like a trapezoid. The upper part is shorter and the bottom part is wider. Also, if you can bend the wire to copy the curves of your back, it will help a lot with the comfort later. This is just to make them stay in one place and not move freely. And now for the wires for tails. You take the wire. Mine were pre-cut to about 1 meter length, same like the pattern. Now, why not longer wires? Because you want the full tail and then the connected to the base. You see, you do lose some of the length of the wire while connecting it, yes, but your tail is also not 1 meter long because of seam allowance. And if the wire is shorter, you have some of the tail's length to connect it to the base, because you don't want the base to be visible nor wire to stick. Hope that answered your question. So, you add the wires by curling it along the base. I started with 2 on the bottom, then 2 on the top, and then I continued whenever was the space on the base. As I mentioned before, gravitation is your friend. So I add 5 tails from the bottom and 4 on the upper layer. Then I added loops from elastic. I sewed it along the wire it was painted. And I inserted another elastic. You can also use a belt if you want. For my comfort, I cut the same shape like the base from old mat to the both sides, that is the orange part. Then I used the hot glue to attach the roots of the tails, and I also sewed them because I don't believe in hot glue anymore. And I covered it with another piece of fake fur. And that was it. All you do is just squat down, tie the ends of elastic around your waist, and you're done. I can fully pose them, I can dance with them, jump, run, or walk like prima donna. Their only enemy is the escalator. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned from my mistakes and that you will able to make tails like these in no time. I think it's fairly simple. There's no need to drill holes, nor use screws or anything like this. All you need is just pliers and wire, and you bend it like crazy, and that's it. This was supposed to be 2 minutes long tutorial, and I ended up with 3 pages of text for the script. Well, goodbye.